Welcome to Perimenopause for Beginners. This video is for anyone wanting to better understand what perimenopause is, why it happens, and how it impacts women's lives from a personal, workplace, and financial perspective. The reality is that most women have never been taught about perimenopause. We learn about puberty, we learn about pregnancy, we learn about breastfeeding. Yet one of the biggest hormonal transitions of our lives often arrives with little preparation and even less support. And as a result, millions of women are left wondering, what's wrong with me? Why am I so tired? Why can't I sleep? Why have I lost my confidence? Why am I suddenly struggling with things that never used to bother me? If you've ever asked yourself any of those questions, you're in the right place. In this video, I'm going to teach you the S.T.R.O.N.G framework, a practical framework I've developed by researching work of leading doctors, scientists, and menopause specialists from around the world, then combining their best evidence-based recommendations into one simple structure that women can actually remember and apply. You'll learn why perimenopause happens, what's happening to your hormones, why symptoms can affect your sleep, your mood, energy, weight, confidence, and even your relationships. The impact of the Women's Health Initiative study on hormone therapy use and what we've learned since. And most importantly, what you can do to better understand, manage, and advocate for your own health. My name's Manuela Andrew, but everyone calls me Manny, and you're welcome to as well. I'm not a doctor or a scientist. I'm a qualified teacher and a woman who has been navigating perimenopause for the last 9 years. Like many women, I've spent years trying to understand what was happening to my body and my mind. Along the way, I developed some tools and strategies and frameworks that helped me to make sense of my experience. And now I want to share them with you too. My goal isn't simply to help you survive perimenopause. It's to help you become forewarned, forearmed, and ultimately formidable. By the end of this video, you'll understand the S.T.R.O.N.G framework from memory. S is for scheduled testing, scans, and sleep. T, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. R, resistance exercise, rest, and relationships. O is for optimized nutrition. N, notice changes, and G, get connected. More importantly, you'll have a practical roadmap for understanding what's happening in your body and identifying your next steps. Now, this is a longer video and I'm going to make a bold claim that if you give me your time, my goal is that you'll finish with more clarity, more confidence, and more control than when you started. If that sounds useful, I encourage you to bookmark this video now, download the workbook if you'd like to follow along, grab something to take notes with, and introduce yourself in the comments section below. Let me know where you're watching from. This is your foundational training, your curriculum for one of the most important life transitions that women experience. So whether you're navigating perimenopause yourself, supporting someone who is, or leading people in the workplace, you're exactly where you need to be. I'm excited to get started. Let's go. You might be wondering why I'm doing this. And as I mentioned, I'm a teacher. But more than that, I'm a woman who's been going through perimenopause for the last 9 years, even before I knew perimenopause was a thing. I'm a sister, a friend, an employee, and a mum. And I was determined that my daughter was not going to have the same kind of experience that I had. When I was going through my research, that was also when I learned about how much our perimenopause journey and the experience we have and the support that we get impacts us from a financial perspective, in addition to housing stability. I'll share with you some statistics around how 47% of women won't consider taking on a promotion, even though they're very qualified and it might be a natural next step for them. I think it's becoming more widely known that during midlife, women get perimenopause and men get promotions. We know that 23% of women are choosing to reduce their hours of paid work by up to half, and that 11% are even leaving the workforce entirely as a result of their symptoms. This has got a huge impact on us financially when we're often bearing the brunt of our health costs individually as well. And I can tell you for sure that when I was a young woman in my 20s, thinking about my future career, doing all the right things, working hard at school, going to university, or having an extra job, being a mum, it never once dawned on me that I would find myself in the demographic of women who are the fastest growing rate of homelessness. That's just not okay with me. I just don't find that acceptable at all. Not in this day and age, not at any time. So, up until a few years ago, Gen Xers like me, we thought that menopause was something that happened once you turned 50 because your body knows how old you are. So it would just flick a switch and suddenly you'd get really hot a lot. But in exchange for that, you wouldn't have a period anymore. Yippee! Sounds great. Sign me up. What we didn't know about was the fact that there's quite a few years beforehand that's called a perimenopause. And many women didn't realise that this existed. They had no idea when it was going to start. And many of us were told if we were experiencing symptoms before the age of 50 that we were too young. So let's get over some of these misconceptions about perimenopause. Perimenopause begins at any time after puberty once your fertility window ends. So it's all related to how many eggs you have left. Basically, the youngest known cases of perimenopause are women as young as 17. So let's have a look at why this happens. When we're born, a female has between 1 and 2 million eggs. By the time we reach puberty, we're down to around 300 to 500,000 eggs because the body has actually absorbed some back in again. By the time we're 31, so between 18 to 31 is actually our most fertile window. By the time we're 31, we're down to around 120,000 eggs. At 50, we've got about 1,000 eggs left. So we are no longer in a very strong fertile period. So at some stage in there, in relation to what your personal circumstance is, your ovarian decline, your ovarian function impacts your cycle, your menstrual cycle. In Western cultures, perimenopause begins at around the age of 45 and concludes around the age of 52. But it can actually last anywhere from 2 to 12 years plus. And for some women, the symptoms can last well into their menopause. So let's have a look at what is actually happening. During your normal menstrual cycle, during your normal fertile period, you experience a fairly cyclical wave pattern. Now, I don't have another colour, but let's just go opposite, just to show that one of these is estrogen and the other line is progesterone. Okay, so your progesterone is low when estrogen is high. Now that's something that you can predict. It happens every month. You get used to that cycle. You get used to the times when you've got your cravings and you could eat a horse and eat for Australia or whatever your home chosen country is, and you know when you're going to be cranky. You can make adjustments in your life for that at home and at work. What changes when you begin your perimenopause is that this no longer continues. You're actually going to fluctuate a lot more widely. In fact, the reason that doctors won't measure your estrogen and progesterone once they suspect you could be in perimenopause is because your hormones are fluctuating daily, even hourly sometimes. So it could look anything like this. Okay, so one day you might be looking like you're estrogen dominant and the next you're looking really low. So they won't use a blood test for your estrogen and progesterone to determine whether you are actually in perimenopause. They're going to rely on you telling them your symptoms. I want to show you what the trends of perimenopause and menopause can look like in our community, because as we know, we have spectrums and we have bell curves for everything. So when we're looking at the impact to women of perimenopause at home and at work, we're going to use a bell curve. And I just want to show you that this section in here and here, let's say that's roughly 20% each. Pardon the handwriting. I could have been a doctor. And in here, we'll say it's 60%. So this 20% of women here may not even know that they are going through perimenopause. It's actually called silent menopause. That doesn't mean that nothing is happening for them. They are still experiencing changes to their bone density and their muscle mass, but they're just not suffering with the brain fog and the night sweats and some of the other typical perimenopause symptoms that we hear about. Then we have this 60% of women here who might have somewhere between, 15, 12, 10, 8 symptoms. They are learning to cope and manage and adapt with those symptoms as they arise. Okay? They're annoying, they're frustrating, they are impacting our sleep and our feelings of well-being. But on the whole, they're coping with it. They're coping still with the demands from home and they're coping with the demands at work. So that's roughly the 60%. Then over here, we have about 20% of women who get the really raw deal. Those are the women who are getting an absolute range of symptoms that are severe, that impact their ability to function at home and at work. So the reason that I wanted to share that with you is to show you that everyone is going to have a different menopause experience or perimenopause experience. You are never too young to start experiencing it. Your experience may not be the same as your mum, your sister, or your best friend, or someone at work. So when you're looking at your symptoms or you're listening to someone else's symptoms, just remember it's unique for everyone. Your experience is not going to be the same as anyone else's. Also, the things that you do to help yourself may not necessarily work for someone else. The other reason I wanted to mention this is because I learned in the last couple of years some statistics that were really surprising for me and fairly disturbing actually. I learned that 47% of women will not take on a promotion, that 23% of women will actually reduce their hours of paid work by up to half, and 11% of women will leave the workforce entirely as a result of their perimenopause symptoms. That was really shocking for me. I learned that in Queensland, in Australia, where I come from, right now there are 40,000 women experiencing homelessness. 40,000. And the interesting thing is that they're not all the obvious homeless. A lot of them are silent homeless. So they're sleeping in their cars or they're couch surfing. You might have a friend of your mum's or your sister's or of your own who comes to visit you every few weeks or months. Have you asked her if she's okay? Because it might actually be that she doesn't have anywhere to live. She may still have a job. She's showering at work. But housing security is a real risk for women my age. I would never have thought it. But when you consider it, we actually do have oftentimes a lot less superannuation than our male counterparts. In fact, often up to 30% less because of those time out of the workforce that we took raising children. We're also the ones who have had to take probably more sick leave on average than our male counterparts as well. So the reason actually that I started wanting to share this information, and as I say, I'm not a doctor and I'm not a scientist, I am a teacher, is because I found that when I was approaching 50 years of age, I rang a doctor in my local area. I'd only moved there a year or two beforehand and hadn't really needed a doctor. So I called a local doctor and I said, hey, listen, I'm about to turn 50 in a few months' time. Is there anything I should be doing or taking to help my body for menopause? Now, this was on the phone during COVID because we weren't allowed to be in person at the time. And the doctor on the other end of the phone said to me, are you planning on getting pregnant? I was like, is she on drugs? I'm sure I just said, I'm 50. I'm about to turn 50. Anyway, I said, no, I'm fine, thanks. And she said, oh, well, you no longer need your estrogen or progesterone, and any symptoms you're experiencing are a normal part of the aging process, I'm afraid. Is there anything else I can do for you today? Well, apart from the fact that she hadn't actually done anything for me today, I got off from that phone call and I thought, okay, I know what estrogen is. It's my female sex hormone. It's made in my ovaries and it helped me get pregnant. But what on earth is progesterone? I honestly did not know at nearly 50 years of age. So I had to Google it. So I Googled it and up came the term, the main function of progesterone is to protect the integrity of the uterus. And I thought, I've still got one of those. That could be important. Now, I wonder if there's anything about estrogen I don't know. It was on that day that I learned for the very first time that estrogen is so much more than a reproductive hormone. It's actually involved in my, and yours, body temperature regulation, sleep cycles, weight distribution. Did I mention temperature regulation already? I can't remember. Okay. What else? Oh, our clarity of thinking and ability to remember. So if any of you actually been looking for a word, you're doing your word finding and your recall on demand just lets you down. Words you've been using successfully for decades suddenly escape you. Okay. Not really the best thing to have happen to you when you're in a meeting and presenting and trying to look like you're all together and you know what you're doing and you're in control. If you are a woman who is used to being in control and having clarity and having confidence in your life, that will very quickly take your confidence away from you. It's very easy to see why a woman might feel like she's actually at the beginning stages of dementia. It robs you of your confidence. And I think that's a big reason why women will opt out of those promotions. So we're not even getting those seats at the table because we're not applying for them. We're not there in enough numbers to represent. We're actually hemorrhaging out of the job pipelines. We are taking ourselves out of the game. And I think we need to do better than that. We deserve better than that. Dr. Heather Hirsch identified that there are 6 different types of perimenopause. Premature menopause, also known as primary ovarian insufficiency, sudden or medical menopause, fast or full throttle menopause, mind-dominant menopause, long menopause, and silent menopause. I think it's really important to understand that there are different types of menopause, and knowing your own personal symptoms and tracking those is going to be really important in helping you have a conversation with your GP. So later on in this video, I'm going to actually show you the Track, Triage, Treat, Repeat protocol that will help you be able to advocate and ask the right questions for what you need. We'll come back to that later. Something else worth mentioning at this stage as well, because you might hear about it or come across it at some stage, is the WHI, or the Women's Health Initiative. So this was a study done over 20 years ago, back in the early 2000s, and the objective was to find out whether hormone replacement therapy would be good for older women. Because they'd been having really great results since the 1920s overall for women's menopause or perimenopause symptoms, they wanted to see if they could apply that for older women as well. The issue is, and what's not widely known, is that the group of women that they decided to use for their tests were already 10 years or more into their menopause. They hadn't been supplementing with any kind of hormone therapy or menopause therapies, and they already had health issues or comorbidities such as obesity, maybe they were long-term smokers, they had cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all of those sorts of things. Then once they did their testing on these women of the HRT, they decided to publish information, which was correct, that one extra woman out of 1,000 was going to be at risk of experiencing breast cancer. So that became the headline: HRT causes breast cancer. So because one extra woman was at a higher risk and was probably going to get breast cancer, 999 other women pretty much threw away their HRT. In fact, I think only about 10% of women kept their HRT going because they were that section of women who had really horrible experiences as far as their symptom management goes. They were really struggling, and so they decided to risk it and keep taking their HRT. So can you imagine that because one extra woman in 1,000 would be at risk of breast cancer, 900 odd other women had to suffer with the symptoms of their perimenopause and also miss out on the protective benefits of the HRT, protective of their of their cardiovascular disease, protective of their bone density and their muscle mass. This is the misinformation that came out, and I think it's a real shame. The problem being, of course, that many women today still are worried about taking HRT. Another thing I think it's important to mention is that breast cancer has a 90% remission rate these days, but there's no remission rates for Alzheimer's dementia. And it's actually a leading cause of death for women. In fact, it's higher than the rates of death for women in breast cancer. So we really need to revisit the information and understanding that we have of hormone replacement therapies for women like you and I, so that we can continue to work and engage in our lives, our sports, our activities. So if you're not sure and you'd like some more information, one great book that I read on it was called Estrogen Matters, and it was by Dr. Avram Blooming and Carol Tavris. Fantastic book. It will really help you to understand what HRT will do for your body. And in fact, some reading that I've come across also suggests that your longevity will be increased by up to 7 years by taking HRT, and that your quality of life overall will be improved. We've also come to know that estrogen feeds cancer cells, but it doesn't cause cancer. So I think that's important. After I decided I needed to find some more information for myself, because I just wasn't getting the help that I needed from the doctor, I also went to another doctor to see whether they might be able to give me some more help, and all they suggested that we do is give me a referral to a gynecologist who was quite happy just to whip out the old Marina and give me a new one, but really wasn't very interested in my perimenopause at all. So I think that's an interesting thing, because oftentimes we women find ourselves going to 4 or 5 or more doctors trying to get some help, and we're paying out of pocket for that every single time. So I think it's important that we continue to talk about that cost. It's one that we wear because of being female and our own health interest. The thing is that that kind of expense can be $80 to $120 out of pocket every single time, and that adds up. I know there have been times when I haven't been to the doctor because I actually couldn't afford it. Okay, it just wasn't in my budget to do so. So we really need to get better at sharing this information. The concern is also that our universities, how quickly are they addressing the lack of training of a lot of our doctors? Even if it's not going to be something for a GP, then we at least need to have some specialists that we can go to. But in the research that I did, I came across information that was shared by Dr. Vonda Wright, who's an orthopedic surgeon out of the US, Dr. Mary Claire Haber, who is an obstetrician and gynecologist that I was following. Then we've got Dr. Stacey Sims, who's an exercise physiologist. We've got doctors who are urologists, Kelly Casperson. So these wonderful doctors who are now sharing their information on social media. And so I went on and then I would buy their books or I'd take courses. And I've spent thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours learning all of this now, really gone down the rabbit warren. And I found some commonalities. And it was interesting because my daughter was in her second or third year of university. And I decided I would send to her a list of things that she and her girlfriends need to do to make sure that they had pretty much everything they needed from an early age to prepare their bodies for this stage of life. Because we're pretty good as a community at supporting our young women through, and men, through puberty. Then we're great at supporting women through pregnancy, childbirth, motherhood, parenthood, and then of course it's fallen silent. Anyway, so I sent my daughter this list. There must have been 13 things on it. And when I was chatting to her one afternoon, I was pretty excited. And I said, so, hey, did you get my list of stuff that I sent you, my text? And she goes, oh, Mum, yeah. Was that there was 13 things on there. I got to about number 6 and then I got sidetracked. And of course, I was over here thinking I'm Mother of the Year because I'm preparing my daughter for this important information that she needed to know, but she couldn't care less, which makes sense because, she's still got all her collagen and elastin. Everything's still gravity defying for her. And she doesn't know that from the age of 30 that her bone density and her muscle mass are going to start to decline. It's not a thing for her right now. So then I thought, okay, I have to make this a little bit more interesting and easier for people to remember and understand. That's how I came up with the naming for S.T.R.O.N.G. All the things that we can benefit at any age, doesn't matter whether you're 20, 50 or 70. There is something that you can do to help regain control over what's happening in your life, get some clarity back, and hopefully that'll also impact our confidence. So I want to share this framework with you now. I've broken it down into letters. So there's S for schedule testing, scans, and sleep. Then you've got T, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone. R is for resistance exercise, rest and recovery, and relationships. O, optimized nutrition. You guys have all heard right now protein is king. But how much protein are we supposed to have? How often? When? Creatine, how much of that should we be taking? And you definitely need to know that you have to increase your fibre if you're going to increase your protein intake. They all go hand in hand, as well as your water. Then you've got N, notice changes. This is a big one, and I think that we undersell it. We need to be able to notice and manage our symptoms. So I want to share with you something I borrowed from the emergency medical system, which is basically track, triage, treat, and repeat. So that when you go and speak to your doctor, you've actually got some good information to share with them in the limited time that you've got. And I'm going to share with you also not just a symptom management, some pages, but a GP preparation sheet where you can write down your symptoms. You can summarize the top 3 and you can write down any questions you have. You can write down any testing that you would like to have done, because how many times have you walked into a doctor's surgery, got back to the car park and thought, oh man, I forgot to ask about this. So then you have to book yourself another appointment and take time off work or out of your life to go and do that. So that's notice changes. G, get connected. So we think we're all really connected now because we've got so much social media and there's a lot of information coming at us. But how connected are you really? You need to have advocates and people in your corner at home, at work, in your community, and among health professionals. So in addition to those, you actually also need to check in with yourself. How connected are you to what's going on for you? Not just your symptoms. Not just the physical side of things, but the mental side of things as well. So for that, I actually came up with something that, again, all of these things are things that I was using to help myself. And I called it my glimmers, glitches, gains, and gratitude journal. So I'll share that with you as well. So let's have a look at the S.T.R.O.N.G framework. The S.T.R.O.N.G framework. So I wanted to tell you just quickly what it all stands for. The S is for scheduled testing, scans, and sleep. T is for the hormones, testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. R, resistance exercise, rest, and relationships. O, optimized nutrition. N, notice changes, symptom management. And G, get connected at home, in the workplace, and with yourself. Okay, it's time for some honesty now. Who here only goes to the doctor when something's wrong with them? Put your hand up. Be honest. All right. Put your hand up if you go to the doctor at least once a year to check in, to see what's happening with your vitamins and your minerals, to check in your cholesterol, your blood sugar, all of those things. If you're doing once a year, fantastic. Anyone here doing more than once a year? Probably not very likely unless you're very invested in your health. Okay, from now on, what I would like to ask you to do is to consider around the time of your birthday, booking in to get an annual blood test. You know that data is information. It's like checking the oil in the brakes before a long road trip. Your body needs a regular service check-in to stay roadworthy. This is your time for you to check in and see how you are traveling, because data is information that you can use to build up a profile of your well-being and health. Okay? And it's something that you can then use to advocate for change and support if you need that. The other reason this is important is because a lot of us know that 60% of the Western population is deficient in magnesium, but not everyone is. But how do you know if you're not testing? I have a girlfriend who was very health conscious, still is very health conscious, and she was taking her magnesium and her vitamin D and all these other things that she needed. She got tested and her magnesium was through the roof, like literally at the top of the testing sheet. She was so full of magnesium that in fact she was wasting money and she was putting an extra load on her liver that it probably actually didn't need. So unless you know what's going on in your body, you may very well be wasting money on vitamins and other products that you don't need, and they're not actually benefiting you. So consider making sure to go in and get a test. Work out what you need, address and adjust. Then if you want to go back in 3 months' time, check that everything's normalizing, go back in another 3 months' time. You might find that you have to pay for some of those tests out of pocket. It's usually around $50 in Australia. But it is worth having that data profile so that you know what your history is. Because even if the doctor says to you, oh yeah, that range is normal, you and I know normal does not mean optimal. They're two very different things. Normal just means that you are in the same calculation or population of people who struggle in this range. My sister actually got her iron tested, and we know that there's a lower and an upper limit of iron. Her limit, like she was like 33. I think the cutoff for the lowest part was 30. She was at 33. No wonder she was dragging herself around. But her doctor didn't say to her, look, you really probably would benefit from considering some iron supplementation. They just said, oh yeah, you're in the normal range. That doesn't help you manage your life with energy and with well-being overall. So once a year, schedule testing, book it in. The second S is scans. And in this section, I just want to concentrate on bone density. I've been following Dr. Vonda Wright, who's an orthopedic surgeon out of the US. She did an excellent video with Stephen Bartlett on Diary of a CEO. It's absolutely worth watching. There are a few on Diary of a CEO actually that if you have the time, absolutely go and watch. Dr. Mary Claire Haver, Dr. Stacey Sims as well. You'll get some excellent information there. I know that time is of the essence for most of us, and if you can carve out an hour for yourself at the end of the day, do you want to read boring menopause stuff, or do you want to watch Emily in Paris or Yellowstone? I know what I want to do. So anyway, hopefully this will save you a little bit of time. But bone density is one, super duper important. So I learned from the video and further research that I've done is that a breastfeeding mother is at risk of losing up to 20% of her bone density every time she's feeding a child if her dietary intake of the right nutrients is inadequate. That's a big loss. Imagine you having 2-3 children. It's easy to see how by the time you turn 50, you could already be in suboptimal bone density. In Australia, we know that 60% of adults over 50 have suboptimal bone density. They're already in osteopenia or osteoporosis. Now, in Australia as well, we don't actually cover the cost of a bone scan under our Medicare until you are 70 or older, or if you have a bone health issue. So it'll be an out-of-pocket expense. But I actually think it's worthwhile when your estrogen is no longer protecting you as much as it was. It's worth getting a scan just to see what your baseline is. The reason I say that is because Dr. von der Wright also said that for average Gen Xers like me, who were fairly active, outdoorsy, we were jumping around, running around a lot, we will have reached our maximum bone density somewhere between the ages of 26 and 30. That's how it's supposed to be. The concern that they're having now is that a lot of our younger generation, who are a lot more stationary, sedentary than us, they are not getting outside, running around as much. They're at the computer a lot more than we were, that they are not even reaching peak bone density at all. So then you add breastfeeding on top of that, you add a suboptimal diet, and again, you could be reaching 50 and you might already have osteopenia. I asked my mum to have a bone density scan. Her doctor had already sent her off for one. And it came back very interestingly. They did 3 sections of her body. They did her shoulder, her spine, and her hips. Her hips came back as osteoporotic. Her spine and her shoulders were in osteopenia. That was fascinating to me because when I went and had my bone density scan done at 52, they only did my hips. Happily for me, it came back in the normal range. So I would think that if you were to go and get your bone density scan done and you're around my age, a few years above or below, more than likely they'll only do your hips. For me, it cost about $120 out of pocket. And if you have normal hips, the likelihood is, it seems, that the rest of your bones are going to be normal as well. So interestingly enough, I have always been really careful about giving my mum a cuddle because I've been afraid of breaking her, because she does look so much more frail now than when I remember her from 20 or 30 years ago. Osteoporosis is not necessarily where we are headed if we do some correct interventions in the meantime. And you'll be hearing now that one of those things is resistance exercise. Weights, weight-bearing exercise. We're going to have a look at that a little bit later in the video. It's not something just to take lightly because you don't want to just start jumping around and then do some soft tissue damage in your joints as well. But absolutely something to consider for including in your perimenopause management plan for how you're going to navigate this stage of your life. So if you haven't already, and you're in that age group where you no longer have your estrogen protection, it might be a good idea next time you go to visit your doctor to ask for a referral for a bone density scan so that you've got your baseline, you know what you're dealing with, then you can take appropriate action. If you're already in osteopenia, now's a great time to start taking corrective action. If you're normal, maybe think about scheduling it for another 5 years' time to check in again, see how you're going then. But bone density scan, this is our structure. This is what's going to keep us upright. And together with our muscles, that's what keeps us living independently for longer. It keeps us getting up and down off the toilet for longer, getting out of chairs, and being able to live unassisted with independence and dignity. Absolutely worth considering as part of your perimenopause plan, and that's why I've included it in the S.T.R.O.N.G framework. I want to share with you this great analogy that I learned from Dr. Mary Claire Haver when she was explaining about the process of how bone renews and replenishes. So she gave an example of trucks. So I'm going to do the same thing here now to show you. So imagine your bone is like a road building crew, okay? So this first truck comes along and it scrapes away all of the old bits of bone. And coming along behind it is what is going to refill and replace that bone. That's what happens when we're younger. As we age, this truck moving along, taking away our old bone, gets faster, but this truck coming along behind is slower. And that's exactly why we get osteopenia and osteoporosis. So what I want to show you is the tensile strength that we need to consider in our bones. This Mars bar is harder to pull apart because there's resistance, okay? If you imagine this in your bones, it's because everything is tightly packed in there. I'm now going to show you how easy it is to break an aero bar. And if you've ever had an aero bar, you'll know that it's full of holes. And you can use that analogy to think about bones that are in osteoporosis because they are more porous. There's basically more holes in the structure of the bone. You see those holes there? Imagine that is now what your bones look like in osteoporosis. So that means overall there is less tensile strength. And there we go. It's much easier to snap. There's less resistance against force and against pressure. Something to consider. Now we often hear about grandma fell over and she broke a bone. Is it possible that grandma broke a bone and fell over? If she has osteoporosis, she's basically walking around on chalk sticks. Your grandma can reverse and improve, not completely reverse I imagine, but she can certainly improve her bone strength even if she's 70, 80, 90 years old. It is never too late to start that resistance exercise, do it under supervision, but get grandma and yourself onto an exercise plan that is going to help you protect the tensile integrity of your bones. Sleep. Sleep is the overnight maintenance crew. Just imagine your body is a busy shopping centre. During the day, customers come and go. Imagine it like your thoughts, your emotions, your decisions. Exercise, work, conversations. The floors get dirty. Stock gets moved around. Equipment gets worn down. Rubbish accumulates. Things break. While the shopping centre is open, there's only so much cleaning and repairing that can happen. Sleep is when the doors close and the overnight maintenance crew comes in. During the night, they empty the rubbish bins, remove waste products from the brain, repair damaged equipment. Think of muscle recovery and tissue repair. Restock the shelves, replete your energy stores. Update the computer system, your memory consolidation and learning, and balance the books, or in our case, some hormone regulation. Service the security system. For us, that's our hard-working immune system, our immune function to keep us healthy. And prepare everything for another successful day. If the maintenance crew's only getting a few hours to work, they can only do the most urgent jobs. And the next day, the floors are dirtier, equipment breaks down more easily, staff are slower, customers become frustrated, mistakes increase. One poor night won't close the shopping centre, but if the maintenance crew is repeatedly sent home early because you're not getting enough sleep, eventually the whole operation starts to struggle. So sleep was one that I got introduced to by watching, again, Diary of a CEO, Stephen Bartlett and Dr. Matthew Walker. He is a professor with the University of California in Berkeley, and he's a sleep researcher. Absolutely go and watch that episode. You can also follow Dr. Matthew Walker on social media as well. Sleep. There is a reason why we want to have at least 8 hours. So if you imagine sleep as your overnight cleaning crew, when you are sleeping, that is when your brain is filing away information that you've learnt that day. It is creative and problem solving, and it's clearing away any of the amyloid proteins. I believe they are tau proteins. They're being cleared away out of your brain. Dr. Walker says that if you have 5 nights of less than 6 hours sleep, say you have 4 hours sleep, your risk of a cardiovascular incident is increased by 200%. Sleep is one of those things that can be hard when you're in perimenopause. Not because you wouldn't love to get a full night's sleep, but for some reason, the changes in our estrogen that used to help regulate that lovely circadian rhythm that we had has just gone out the window. You wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and for the life of you, you cannot get back to sleep. I actually attended a really interesting seminar at the International Menopause Conference where a person from the Australian Sleep Institute presented research and information. And I'm going to summarise all of that, and I've got a cheat sheet that I've attached below for you. Feel free to print that out. But something that someone else also mentioned to me, I don't know who to credit. It was actually told to me by one of the fitness professionals at my gym. And it's the 10, 3, 2, and 1 protocol. I don't know, has anyone here tried it? I haven't yet. But basically it says that 10 hours before sleep, no more caffeinated beverages. No coffee, no tea. 3 hours before sleep, you eat your last meal. 2 hours before sleep, have your last drink. And then 1 hour before sleep, no more screens. So ideally that's when you'll be journaling or meditating or just doing something quiet. That's the 10, 3, 2, and 1 protocol. Give that a try, see if that helps. Another interesting thing I learned at this conference was that modern sleep of a full 8 hours is actually a fairly new concept that came about during the time of the Industrial Revolution because people needed us to be good sleepers so we could be good workers the next day. But when we were mostly farmers, that we would actually maybe have a sleep for 3 or 4 hours. Then we'd get up, we would tend to the animals, stoke the fire, have relations, whatever, then go back and have our second sleep. So one of the things that this researcher suggested is that we try not to stress and put pressure on ourselves about the fact that we're not sleeping, but obviously find as much help as you can to get you sleeping. Now, I know that women who have gone on to take hormone replacement therapies have usually been able to wipe out 80 to 90% of the disruptive symptoms in their lives. And you and I both know, if you've had a child in the home, if you've ever slept in a home that's got a baby in it, there is a reason that sleep has been used as a very effective form of torture for centuries. But you know, when you go to work the next day, people know you've got a baby at home, they're very understanding, they're very forgiving. They all get it, they've all been there. You go to work on 3 or 4 hours sleep or less, and you're in perimenopause or menopause, people aren't as understanding. They're not as forgiving. And this is again why the structure of the modern workforce isn't really designed for our midlife bodies. And it's one of the conversations that we might need to have with our workplace, with our leaders, to see what kind of flexible arrangements we might be able to have. Maybe we have a later start. Maybe we work from home. There's some other solutions. but have a look in the printout that I've got for you down below and see if any of the suggestions for sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker are going to help you. Okay, so now we're at the T of our ST.R.O.N.G framework, and the T represents testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. So remember I told you the story earlier of how I first learnt about estrogen and progesterone. And of course, then I also had to learn about testosterone. So I want to share with you some of the main important pieces of information that I've learnt about these hormones so that you have a better idea generally. So testosterone is traditionally thought of to be a male hormone. That's not the case. We also have testosterone. In fact, a female will have 1/10 to 1/20 the amount of testosterone as a male. As we age, our testosterone decreases. By the time we are 50 years old, we will be down to a quarter or a half of the testosterone that we used to enjoy. Now, you may know testosterone as being a libido hormone, your sex drive, but it's not just that. I think of it like our do hard things hormone. If you've ever been the kind of woman who does a lot of DIY, you're hanging off a ladder at the side of the house, spraying it a different colour with your $40 Zito sprayer from Bunnings, but now, a couple of years on, you go out to the backyard, look at the lawn and think, no, I just can't mow this today. I just haven't got it in me. It could be your testosterone. In fact, we actually make more testosterone in our bodies than what we make estrogen. The interesting thing is that doctors can actually test your level of testosterone. There is a baseline. In Australia, it's 1, whatever that means. If you are below 1 in your blood test, you can have your testosterone supplemented. It's a product called Androfem. Comes in a little tube, little white cream. You put a pea-sized amount on the inside of your wrists, spread it around, there you go. After 6 to 8 weeks, your doctor is going to want to test you again to make sure that your body is absorbing it and to make sure that you're not ending up with too much. Now, some people are worried that testosterone is going to make them grow a beard and that their voice is going to drop several octaves. It didn't do that for you before. So it's probably not going to do that for you now. What you will probably feel is that you'll start to feel more like yourself. You will have more energy. You will be more interested in doing some of those challenging things that you've been avoiding. You might also be interested to know, I've actually taken testosterone myself, and I did find that over the last couple of years that my voice has changed. But apparently that's not due to the testosterone. It's actually due to the reduced amount of estrogen in my system. And the lower amount of estrogen means less lubrication for my vocal cords. I saw some research that says that a woman's vocal range will decrease or change by around 14 hertz. Now, I have no idea what hertz means or what it looks like, but I can say that over the last few years I've noticed that my voice has deepened somewhat, and I do notice that I have to clear my throat more often. I have to drink more water. I can't speak for as long without feeling like there's something in my throat. So it's around lubrication and moisture in your throat, not necessarily as a result of the testosterone. So if you're finding that you have absolutely no sex drive, you've got no motivation to do anything challenging, and you just don't feel like yourself, it really might be worth asking your doctor to include a test for testosterone next time you have a blood panel done. It just may make all the difference for you. Absolutely worth it. So now we're at the estrogen part of our hormone chat in the T out of the ST.R.O.N.G framework. Estrogen. Most of us have known estrogen as our female sex hormone made in our ovaries, helped us get pregnant. But what you and I probably never were told, I certainly never was, is that estrogen is made up of a number of estrobolites. So there are different types of estrogen. There's estradiol, which is like your Wonder Woman estrogen. It's the one that does all that great protection of our bodies, keeps our bones strong, our muscles strong, the collagen in our bodies, helps our thinking clear, helps us with our sleep, and helps to regulate our body fat distribution. Okay, I'll tell you about a bit more about that in a minute. Then we have estriol, which is mostly found in pregnant women. Okay, so we're not really going to talk about that one right now. Then we have estrone, estrogen. Imagine that estrone is like Robin to estradiol's Batman. Okay, always trying hard, always showing up, but it's not our favourite. Estrone is made in our body fat. That means that when our estradiol, which is predominantly made in our ovaries as well as in our adrenal glands, when that factory is starting to shut down, estrone is signalled. And estrone's waving her arms going, oh my God, factory's shutting down. Girlfriend needs some estrogen. We better step in and help. And that's usually toward the end of your perimenopause journey that you'll notice you'll put on more weight. Now, I learned only a couple of months before I turned 50 by a physiotherapist in my gym class that it was likely that I would put on 5 kilograms of body fat, even if I was eating and exercising the same as I always had. Gobsmacked much. The doctors that I've spoken to since have told me that in their experience, the women coming to them are actually putting on more like 10 kilos. A range of 5 to 10 kilos. Taking HRT doesn't necessarily mean that you won't put on that body fat. Doesn't mean that you'll stay the same. Doesn't mean that you'll lose that extra body fat, because every single woman is different. The important thing is you need to know that that estrone, estrogen that is being produced in your body fat is there to protect you. It's there to help you. Now, you and I aren't going to love it. You and I have grown up spending decades learning how to manage what we put into our mouths, learning to make sure that we exercised off more calories than we took in. And when we were younger, calories in and calories out actually mattered and they worked. But estradiol estrogen was doing a lot of the heavy lifting as far as the maintenance of our weight. It's really hard now to get to an age where you are putting on weight for reasons you cannot understand. Nobody else understands. They're seeing you put on weight and they're thinking, she can't control what she puts in her mouth. She's just not getting enough exercise. She must be getting a bit lazy. No, that's not what's happening. This is a normal biological progression. This is supposed to happen for us. It's just that we never knew about it. It's important that we have this conversation and share this, and we need to share this to our daughters. But more importantly, I think we all need to come to terms with what that looks like and feels like on us. I'll be perfectly honest, I don't love the fact that I've put on 10 kilos. I really don't. It doesn't necessarily feel like me. I feel matronly now, where I never felt matronly before. I'm having to come to terms with a whole new version of me that I never thought that I would have to. So I think socially, this is something that we need to come to terms with. I think personally, we need to make sure that as long as we are healthy and the weight range that we are in doesn't send us into obesity, which is then going to put us at higher risk of more insulin resistance, pre-diabetes or diabetes risk, whether it's going to put any more load on us for cardiovascular risk in the future. These are the things that we need to be thinking about. So I don't want to talk about GLP-1s here. I really don't know enough about it. I know that they help a lot of people. For me, I can't get a GLP-1 because my BMI is not considered high enough. So my belly fat that I'm carrying around here is something that I'm going to have to try to manage through diet and exercise. We're going to have a look at resistance training and protein, etc. a little bit later on. But I just think it's worth this conversation, and please share this knowledge about the estrone estrogen that is created in your body fat. Don't go hating on your body. Be nice to yourself. We're the last ones usually to be kind to ourselves. Okay, we don't like to feel out of control. This is something we can't control. I don't like feeling out of control. There are things that we can do to help mitigate it, but don't go hating on yourself and being hard on yourself if this is something that you're struggling with, because a lot of us are. You are definitely not alone there. Okay, so 3 different types of estrogen estrobolites made in your body. Now, you've probably also heard, just finally, we have estrogen receptors all over our bodies. So there's estrogen receptors in our brains, like literally everywhere in our bodies. So when you understand that this estrogen and your estradiol particularly, that's predominantly made in your ovaries, is declining, you can see while every part of your body is lighting up with symptoms because it's in lack. Another thing I want to mention is a lot of people think, oh, you know, I'm going to take this, that, and the other to balance my hormones. You can't balance something that your body is no longer making. Okay, if your ovaries are no longer making estradiol, you have to replace that with something. You can't balance it. So you would be replacing it with hormone replacement therapy. And interestingly, years ago, back in the 20s, HRT was made from conjugated equine estrogen, horse pee from pregnant mares. They don't use that anymore. Okay? The estrogen that you are getting in your estrogel is made from yams, sweet potato. That doesn't mean you can start eating more sweet potato and everything will be all sweet. But isn't it nice to know that we're putting something back into our bodies that our bodies are used to having, they've always had before, and we're getting it from something natural like a plant? I love that. So please don't be afraid to have that conversation and do some more reading for yourself about hormone replacement therapies, because if they can keep you employed, if they can help you to have better relationships with your family, your children, and your co-workers, then I think that that is absolutely worth investigating. Your sanity matters. Your quality of life matters. You deserve to live a really great life. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Okay, final hormone I want to look at under the T of our strong framework is progesterone. So progesterone is the one that I knew nothing about when I spoke to my doctor. And remember I said in that story I told earlier that I had to Google it. So I Googled progesterone and up came the terms. The main function of progesterone is to protect the integrity of the uterus. And so I thought, oh, still got one of those. That could be important. I better look into it. So I looked into it a little bit more. And of course I learned that progesterone is also our calming hormone. It's the one that helps make things just seem more achievable. We're more friendly. We're happier. And of course, more than likely, we're probably going to be a little bit more horny as well. And of course, if you have a look, let's do this little cycle thing again. Remember when we're normally cycling? So at the top here, if progesterone is high, that means we're getting the lining to our uterus is being built up, ready for impregnation, whatever, getting pregnant. Okay, so that is going to increase our likelihood of getting pregnant. In this lead-up period, we're in a pretty good mood overall. Estrogen is low when progesterone is high. When we are getting ready to shed our progesterone. So this is when we get our monthly cycle, basically. Okay, so we're losing our lining down here, the way I understand it. This is when we start getting cranky and irritable because progesterone is dropping down really low. Interestingly, progesterone is the hormone that will be dropping down lower the first. So when you're starting to notice a change in your body and that first inkling of perimenopause symptoms, maybe you're getting the night sweats, maybe your period is getting crazy heavy and you feel like you are hemorrhaging, it's because of the drop in progesterone production. When this happened to me, I was 45. Happily, I was able to chat to one of the girls at work and I was telling her what was happening and she said, oh yeah, the same thing happened to me. I went to my doctor and they gave me a Mirena, and since then I haven't had a period ever since. And I thought, fantastic, sign me up, I'll have one of those. So I went to see my doctor, I got my Mirena. For 6 months, I still felt like I was having, and I was still having, a normal period, but a heavy period. 6 months later, I went back to my doctor and said, listen, you may as well whip this thing back out again because it's not doing anything. It's useless. I then was told that I needed to give it 12 months for this Mirena to kick in and actually take effect. Whether that's correct or not, I don't know. But interestingly, I've come across a lot of women who have had a Mirena put in, never had a period again. But I have also been told that that is the exception rather than the norm. That most people will still go on to have a normal period cycle on the Mirena. That might be your experience as well. I know that a lot of young women are also choosing to go off the pill and use a Mirena as the birth control. So some younger women who otherwise might have a fairly light period may end up not having a period at all. So it could also depend on where you are in your perimenopause journey. Now, it's also interesting to know that your Mirena provides localized protection in your uterus. That means it's not systemic and going through your bloodstream. This is what I've been led to understand. So if you are taking a progesterone tablet in addition to your Mirena, then you have localized protection here, but you've also got the impact of the progesterone going through your system. Not everyone does well on progesterone though. Some people really struggle with progesterone. So again, it's a really nuanced conversation that's worth having with your doctor, and it might be a bit of trial and error as well. Just like with estrogen, it comes in mostly now it's transdermal as a patch or as a gel. So I forgot to mention earlier that vaginal estrogen can actually be used to help against the genitourinary symptoms of menopause, because more than 50% of women will be at risk of experiencing recurring urinary tract infections now, and we also have atrophy of the soft tissue and the area around our pelvic floor. So don't be afraid to ask your doctor about vaginal estrogen. Progesterone though, it's very nuanced, and for some people it might be great, for other people it might not be so great. I've been someone who's been in and out of the gym all of my life. Since my 20s, it was a bit harder in my 30s when my children were young. In my 40s, I tried to get in there a little bit more often again, and now in my 50s, it's probably been hardest of all. More recently, as part of my perimenopause journey, I've been diagnosed with hypothyroidism, which means that my thyroid function is low, which means I've also been struggling with fatigue and energy. It's kind of hard to get excited about going to the gym the way that you used to when you are thinking like you're still in your 30s. Okay, your body's now in its 50s, maybe in your 40s, but your mind is still younger than where your body is at. Okay. One of the things I've been learning about, and I've done the Menopause 2.0 course with Dr. Stacey Sims, That was a really interesting course. I've also been listening to Dr. Vonda Wright, of course, talking about how important resistance exercise is for our bone density and our muscle mass. And of course, Mary Claire Haver talks about it as well, Dr. Haver. And a weighted vest is something that she often recommends. So let's have a look at some of those. Resistance exercise. Basically, they're saying that when you and I were in our 20s and 30s, we could do 3 to 5 sets of 12 to 15 reps, and that was good. That was a good range for us with a medium, sort of low to medium weight. Now they're suggesting that we're older, that we instead look at doing 4 sets of 4 reps. Four sets, 4 repetitions of the same exercise. And instead of having a 1-minute rest in between each of our sets, now we should be having, say, a 3-minute rest, because our nervous system benefits from that more recovery time, having more recovery time. They recommend going for fairly heavy weights. I understand that. That does make sense to me. However, for my personal enjoyment of what I like to do at the gym, I'm going to be somewhere between those two. And I know that I have to be careful with the amount of weight that I carry, because in the last few years, I've had things like tennis elbow and golf elbow. I've never played any of those at all in my life. You might also be experiencing plantar fasciitis. You might have bursitis. You might have, what's this thing I have here in my knee now? Other people have been mentioning it too. Basically, it's soft tissue strain, joint strain. So if you're trying to punch out, 12, 15 or 20 push-ups, maybe you've got one arm that's weaker than the other and you're thinking, I'll just push through and I'll get better. You might not necessarily. Okay, so you've got to be really, really careful with the sort of exercise that you choose to do. Obviously, the best exercise for you to do is one that you enjoy and that you're going to want to engage in frequently. That's the first thing. All the doctors will tell you, and the exercise scientists, to go for weight-bearing resistance exercise at least twice a week. 3 is great if you can, but at least twice a week. Yoga, swimming and cycling don't count for bone density. So that means you should still go swimming and cycling if that's what you enjoy, and absolutely go and do your yoga. It'll be great for your soft tissue, etc. Great for your muscles, great for your cardiovascular fitness, but it's not necessarily putting enough load on your bones for your bone density. So when you're looking at designing your training or the exercise that you do, you need to consider all of those things. I also know that a lot of us are super busy. Some of us are getting up at 5 or 6, getting the kids ready for school, getting our way to work, and some of us have an hour and a half commute each way. So we're not getting home until 7 or 7:30 at night. Fitting all of these recommendations in is hard work. So if at the absolute minimum, all you can do is on a weekend, maybe 2 weight sessions, see what you can fit in when you can. I went to an interesting lecture at the International Menopause Conference that was held in Melbourne back in 2024. And it was called Muscle Matters. And that professor introduced the idea of strength snacking. I'd never heard of that concept before. You might be like me, thinking that unless I can go to the gym and punch out a full 50, 60-minute session, it's not worth going. Well, this professor basically said, no, that's wrong. Try to do 2 to 5 minutes at your desk if you can. That might mean that you keep some dumbbells handy and you're doing some arm curls, some bicep curls. Maybe you're doing some front raises. Maybe you're doing some side raises, okay? Overhead press. Do some squats, okay? Calf raises. Do the exercise that you can, where and when you can, because it's all cumulative. It all adds up. Every little bit helps. So if you can get to the gym, see how you go. Play around with this and see what feels right for you. If you have the time and the inclination, absolutely have a look at doing some courses around resistance training. Get yourself a personal trainer to make sure that you're using the equipment properly, that your form and that your technique are excellent. I think it's worth investing in an exercise physiologist as well, and have some muscle testing done on yourself. Like I said, I've been in and out of the gym for most of my life. When I got tested, it was about 6 months ago now, my upper body strength is in the 90th percentile for women my age. Yippee! Because I love training upper body, it's kind of fun. But I've never liked training my lower body because it's hard. Those muscles are big and it takes a long time for change to happen. When she tested my lower body, she found I'm hamstring dominant rather than quad dominant, and also that my lower body strength is only in the 30th percentile for women my age. I'm 54. I think that's because I have a sitting job as well. I basically sit all day. I sit when I'm commuting to and from work. I sit while I'm at work for up to 8 hours a day. The shortest walk I have is between the car park and my office building, and you might have exactly the same thing. So it's easy to see why it would be quite simple to injure yourself. If you can afford it, get your muscles tested and get something specific to help you build up what you need to for your deficiencies, and make sure you're looking after your soft tissue, because otherwise I can tell you now your physiotherapist is going to become your very best friend. You know, there was one afternoon I distinctly remember where I was sat down on the lounge at home and I was just exhausted. I literally did not, could not, would not want to lift my arms up. I felt like I was led, like I was just stuck to this lounge. I'd literally hit a wall. And I didn't want to move. And I think for hours, the only thing I could press was the ads button on the Netflix. And I remember feeling really guilty about it. I also remember feeling a little bit later that, okay, Manny, you can't stay here. You can't just stay here all day and watch Netflix. That's not okay. And I thought, but what about, I've done so much. No, you can't. You have to get up. You've got things to do. So I decided that I would choose one thing to do, just one. I decided to put on a load of washing. And that was it. I was tired and exhausted again. I just collapsed back on the lounge. And it was hours before I got up then to go and hang that washing up. But at that point in time, I knew that I need to negotiate with myself just to do one thing. Because if I tried to get myself to do any of the other things on my list of things that I knew I had to do, I wouldn't have done anything at all. And in my heart, logically as well, I knew that wasn't an okay place for me to be. And I was worried that that was where I'd end up still for the next 3 days. I think it's possible that we don't realise and we don't recognise the signs of when we're getting really worn down and exhausted. I think we also need to get better at that. So once I had done my one job, I ticked that off. I thought, you know what? If I feel like it in a few hours' time, if I feel like it, I'll get up and I'll do one more thing. But I don't have to. So I took the pressure off myself from achieving anything else. The next day, I was feeling a bit better again. And I thought, you know, the next time that happens, I need to be ready. But I also want to be able to check in with myself to go, where am I actually at right now? Because how many of us are just hitting a brick wall and collapsing? I think we deserve to have a scenario where we can just pause, prompt, reflect, and reset. And so I created a little check-in for myself. It's the pause, prompt, reflect, reset. And the questions I ask myself are, how am I feeling right now? Where's my energy level at out of 10? What have I got on today? Who's relying on me today? What is the minimal amount that I can do if I'm in a power down mode? What does power down look like for me? What things would I want to achieve? And on the flip side of that, there are other times when I'm in a power up mode, when I've got lots of energy and motivation, and there are so many things that I achieve and want to get done. And I think, like I mentioned earlier about Newton's cradle, sometimes your output is astronomical. It's incredible the amount of work and the things that you achieve. But really, you shouldn't be terribly surprised if there are times when you just can't anymore. Now, fortunately for me at the time, my children had already left home and it was just me. And I was able to just have a few hours to myself on the lounge watching Netflix. And I realised that not everybody is at that stage. But if I can encourage you just to stop, even if it's for a minute, stop in, check in with yourself, decide what you need to do next, and ask for help if you need it. There is no shame in asking for help. And there are things that you can do to help you with your anxiety, your energy, things like your breathing. If you're feeling panicked and anxious, remember the box breathing protocol as well. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. It is amazing what I've learned that breathing can do to help calm your anxiety, get your heart rate down, and actually have you feeling a lot better and in control. But if you don't, it's okay. You will be okay and things will get better. Please remember to rest and check in with yourself. And if you need help, ask. Someone always wants to help you. So the next R in our STRONG framework is rest and recovery. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, rest wasn't really celebrated and it wasn't encouraged. If you were sitting around not doing anything, usually you'd hear someone say, "Haven't you got anything to do? I'll find you something to do." And you're like, "Oh, I just want to be here. I just want some downtime." So I think a lot of us have grown up feeling like we have to always be productive. We always have to be doing something useful, something meaningful, something that someone else will congratulate us for, thank us for, or appreciate. So for you and I now, trying to rest and recover is actually going to be really hard. It's something we're going to have to get used to. If you think about your resistance exercise as something that you do for your future to make sure you've got the great muscle strength for that longevity and independence, you also have to consider that you now need more rest than what you did 20 years ago. And you're going to have to build that into your schedule. In your mind, you don't feel necessarily any different to what you did 20 years ago, but your body is different. Think about the downtime that you have is the opportunity for the effort and investment that you made to do your exercise for the benefit of your muscles and your bone density. Your rest and recovery is the time when those gains are implemented and realized. Your body can't build muscle if it's not given the time to grow. Obviously, it also needs to be fed properly, and that's the protein side of things. But please remember and try not to feel guilty about the fact that you need more rest now, and try to build some in for yourself. Think about everything is balance. One of the great things I like to show, and I'll have a look at it in a bit more detail with you. Have you ever seen Newton's cradle? You know those little silver ball bearings, and they're on the end of a bit of a rope, and you clip one and the other one bounces, and then this one bounces, and then that one bounces? That's your energy. So imagine your energy always swinging out, but what comes up must come down. What you put in one direction must come back in the other direction. So if you can try to do little bits more often, potentially you're going to be able to manage your energy a little bit better, and you'll always make time for recovery. so that you also avoid having any injury. The final R in our ST.R.O.N.G framework, relationships. I don't think that we can actually have a conversation about midlife changes, symptoms, without also addressing how we feel, the emotional side of what's happening for us. There's a lot going on. There's a lot changing. And I found for myself anyway that the changes that I was going through and experiencing actually collided at the same time that my son, who was 19, was also going through a lot of his stuff as well. It meant that there was more tension, there was more conflict than there otherwise might have been. And it also meant that I just didn't have the capacity to support him the way that he might have needed me to, and maybe the way that I would have been able to if I was in a different place in my life overall. I think it's worth considering our relationships in our personal life as well as at work. And so I was looking through a bit of research by Dr. Bruce Lipton, and I have massaged it a little bit for my own purposes. And I've come up with 3 things that I think are really important to consider in any relationship, whether it's a work one or a personal one. So we've got attraction, admiration, and appreciation. So you and I know attraction as the way we are physically drawn to someone, what we like about their physical features, for example, or some chemistry that you might have. And the same thing is true of a workplace. What is it that attracts you to that workplace? It might be the pay package. It might be the conditions of work. It might be the location. It might be the colleagues, whatever it is. There is something that draws you and attracts you to either that workplace or that person. Then we've got admiration. Admiration is how we respond to how that person or that workplace moves and behaves in the world. Are their values aligned with ours? Do we like the way they treat other people? Do they like what they are trying to do for our community or for the world or within our family, or even the way that they treat us? And then finally, appreciation. You know, people will say to you, a relationship is a place where you go to give. Yes, but you can't give from an empty cup. And I think that appreciation is what fills our cup. We love to do things for other people. We love helping other people. We love making life easier for other people. But we would also like other people to do the same thing for us. To appreciate the efforts that we make. To appreciate the considerations. Either at home, again, or at work. And I think that if you don't have all 3, there's going to be something missing in that relationship. And that leads to dissatisfaction. It leads to unhappiness. And when you are going through a whole range of physical symptoms that you can no longer control, that you're not necessarily on top of yet because you haven't learned how to manage them all, and you haven't come to terms yet with where you are in the world, the fact that you're carrying an extra 10 kilos, the fact that maybe you're not somewhere in the stage of your life that you thought that you would have been. So some dissatisfaction creeps in. And I think it's really easy for us to want to blow up our lives, basically. Make change. Because when you change something, you're in control of it. You're the one doing it. I can share with you that when I turned 45, within a very few months, I ended a relationship, I moved interstate, I started a new job, and I bought a house. Like literally within months. And in hindsight now, whilst I won't say I regret all of those things, I think that I could have had a better process around how I arrived at my decision making. Because I would like to encourage women to be more proactive in this stage of life rather than reactive. Being reactive means we're making a snatch and grab to try to hold on to the things that are familiar to us We just create change because creating change seems a lot easier than working through the crap. And so I've come across, I've come up with a decision tree. I'm going to attach that to the bottom of this video so that you will have access to it as well. You can print it out as many times as you like, share it with your friends, in the hope that it will make you just stop, have a pause, and think about, where are you at right now? What do you need? What do you want? What's going to come next? How will you make that happen? Because I also then, a few years after having made that big move and starting my new job, pretty much wanted to do it all again. And I handed in a resignation to my boss, who actually wouldn't accept it, happily for me, because she saw that I was struggling. And I think she understood, being around my age, what was going on for me that I didn't see, because we weren't talking about all of this stuff. Happily for me, she had my back. She was my boss. And she said, Manny, you know what? We're going to put you on leave. You go and do you. And when you're ready, if you want to come back, your job will be here for you. And that's a very, very fortunate position to be in. Not everyone can do that, I understand. And it's because not everyone can do that, that it concerns me. That a lot of us are making choices to blow up our lives, and it is costing us financially. I'm worried that women are walking away from relationships that they otherwise were relatively happy in. I can tell you that there will come a time when someone, maybe your significant other, is sitting next to you chewing their dinner and their jaw is clicking and you just want to punch them in the face. Of course, you can't do that, but it's grating on you. It is irritating you, but it never bothered you before. And so it can push you into extremes of behavior or feelings that you may not have if your symptom management is actually in a good spot. And if you also verbalized and identified what the problems are that you're experiencing, so you can get some help from your partner or from your workplace or from your health professional. So I think this R in our S.T.R.O.N.G framework as a way of managing the whole person is an important consideration. And I hope that it will help to slow you down, not to stop you from making changes that you identify that you need, but to be really confident that the changes you're making are in your best interest. In the rabbit hole of perimenopause, things to do for your body during this changing life stage, the other area that I've been looking at is the O in our S.T.R.O.N.G framework, and it's optimizing nutrition. You've probably been hearing heaps about protein. In the Western world, apparently, the average woman is consuming about 50 to 60 grams of protein per day. So just under 1 gram of protein per kilogram of her body weight. And apparently that's not enough. If you consider that a chicken breast has got about 30 grams of protein in it, same for, say, a piece of steak, 30 to 35. One egg has got 6 grams of protein in it. Now, most of us are used to having an omelette with, say, 3 eggs in it. So 3 6s are 18. If you have that for breakfast, you've got 18 grams of protein, but you're still a little bit short. Because Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, who is the author of Forever Strong, she says that we need no less than 100 grams of protein per day. That's at a minimum. I'll explain why in a moment. You're probably seeing that we are recommended to get somewhere between 1.2 and say, or 1.6 to 2.2 grams of protein per kilogram, or sorry, per pound of body weight. So it gets confusing. So for me, I'm just going to go 1.5. I'm going halfway between the two, and I'm doing it per kilo of body weight. So I weigh 75 kilos. If I was having 1 gram of protein per kilo of my current body weight, that means I would be eating 75 grams of protein. That would help support the muscle mass that I currently have. But here's something interesting. When we're younger, our estrogen and other hormones are helping us maintain the status quo of our muscle mass. As we age, the body's ability to synthesize protein decreases. So just imagine, say that I've only been eating 75 grams of protein per kilo of my current weight, and that's where it was keeping me before I went into my perimenopause. Now as I'm aging, I'm now 54, if I eat only my 75 grams of protein, because my body now doesn't synthesize it as well, my muscle mass is naturally reducing. So I have to make up the shortfall in my diet. I now need to, in order just to maintain the status quo, because basically we're swimming against the tide now, let's say, this is not accurate, but let's say that I now have to eat my 100 grams of protein just to stay at my previous baseline. What that also means is that if I actually want to grow my muscle mass, okay, if I actually want to see an increase in my muscle mass over time, I'm going to have to eat even more protein. That's a lot of chewing. You're going to get tired of chewing. It's challenging to get in the right amount of protein for your needs. You're going to have to start at breakfast. And I don't really see any of us having a 5-egg omelette for breakfast. 5 eggs, just imagine. But that's your 30 grams of protein. So how are you going to do that all day? You're going to have to work out how you're going to get some protein at breakfast, maybe some at morning tea. If you can have a chicken breast or a piece of steak or the vegan equivalent, you'll have to consume a greater bulk of a pea protein as opposed to a meat-based protein to get the same bang for your buck, basically. Then you've got afternoon tea and you've got dinner. So say that I eat my 3-egg omelette for breakfast. There's my 18 grams. Say that I have a piece of chicken breast with some salad for lunch, and I have a piece of steak at dinner. That's still only 78 grams of protein. So for me, I'll be honest, I do try to supplement where I can with a protein powder. I make sure it's a good one, not too many fillers, not too much sugar and crap in it. Because I also don't need it to spike my blood sugar, because as I've aged now, my body is becoming more insulin resistant. This is absolutely worth thinking about. It's also worth knowing that collagen is not a complete protein. It's missing some of the vital amino acids that mean that protein can be used for muscle growth and repair. So collagen is excellent for your skin, your nails, your hair, and your joint tissue, but you can't count it as part of your protein intake from a muscle maintenance perspective, from everything that I have learned. And in fact, the main learning around the protein and collagen that I did was with the Stacey Sims Menopause 2.0 course. Absolutely worth doing if you have the time and the inclination. You've probably also heard a lot about creatine. So creatine monohydrate has basically been used by bodybuilders for decades. It's one of the most widely researched supplements available and known to man. But it's not just for bodybuilders. Yes, it's great for helping your body to store moisture and glycogen in the body, but apparently it's really great for our brains. Now, 1 teaspoon on average, a heaped teaspoon of creatine monohydrate stirred into your water, your cup of tea, whatever, you won't even taste it. If you were to have it just dry, it's like, well, it'd be like having powdered chalk. Not so great, a bit gritty. But you can have that in your water up to 4 times a day. So there is some research happening now to show that taking in up to 20 grams and slightly more than that per day is really great for our brains. And in fact, if you're sleep deprived, that taking creatine at around that 20 gram amount is going to help you exist through your day as though you've had a full night's sleep. Probably not recommended all the time, but it's going to help. Look into creatine. Again, there's a great interview on Diary of a CEO. There's lots of great interviews about creatine, so there's lots of information to find on it. What you will find though is you will probably want to build up your intake of creatine because it can give you tummy upset, okay, diarrhea, gastro upset. So start off small and build it into your day. If you can't always take the amount, that's okay. Every little bit that you're doing each day to supplement your diet and to help you in the longer term is going to be one step closer to having a better quality of life overall. So that's your creatine. Creatine's going to make you very thirsty. Okay, so that's why I suggest I just top mine up and put it into a bottle of water. I keep one on my desk. I even keep a jar of creatine on my desk, and I just can top it up as I go. Because you're going to be thirsty as it's drawing fluid into your muscles, and it gives that lovely rounded feeling. Some people say that they feel a bit bloated, a bit puffy on it, but I don't really find that anymore. Okay, so creatine and fiber. If you're increasing your protein, you definitely need to increase your fiber, because as we age, another interesting side effect of having less estrogen in our body is that our gut motility slows down. That means the processing of our food and the amount of time it takes to actually go through our intestinal tract is longer. You're also more likely to experience bloating and constipation during this perimenopause transition because of those changes that are happening. So fiber, there's both insoluble and soluble. So soluble fiber is the one I showed you. The soluble fiber, you can buy Benefiber, for example. You just stir it into your water again. I add mine to my creatine water. Can't taste it. It's absolutely fine. And that's just giving me a little bit of an extra boost. But you also want insoluble fiber, which you're going to get from your fruit and vegetables and your grains, nuts, seeds, things like that. Dr. Mary Claire Haver says that on a minimum we should be getting 25 grams a day, but ideally you'll be closer to 35 grams a day. It's quite a lot. So if you're now going to start concentrating on maximizing your muscle mass in the gym, you're going to want to make sure that you're also maximizing your nutrition. Protein for your muscles, collagen for your skin, hair and nails and joint tissue. Creatine is not just great for your brain, but it's also going to help with your exercise recovery as well as the amount of energy your body has available for exercise. Okay, so your body actually does naturally make creatine, but only about small amounts. I think about 3 to 5 grams is what's in your body, and your body will use that amount very, very quickly. For your brain to get any benefit, that's when you have to be in your 20 gram plus, not much plus, I don't think. And the fiber is important to make sure the whole system keeps working really, really nicely. And again, think about what your goals are around your muscle mass. Older people usually eat smaller meals, they eat less. It's possible that they're not getting enough protein in their diet. So, Dr. Gabrielle Lyons says, try to aim for no less than 100 grams per day. If I was going for that 2 gram per kilo recommendation, I'd be looking at 150 grams of protein a day. Okay, that's a lot. Anyway, have a look at this, consider what you might need, look up some of those specialist doctors who go in deep, like Dr. Stacey Sims as well as Dr. Gabrielle Lyons. Her book is called Forever Strong, and you'll find some more information about what you might need to do for you. Okay, we're going to have a look at the N in our strong framework now, and it's notice changes. Let me ask you, what's the first thing you do when the light comes on the dashboard of your car? Hopefully you take it into the shop, you get it sorted, you do something about it. Answer honestly, what's the first thing you do when you start getting some sort of symptoms or something niggling and something's not right with you? How many of you have said, ignore it, because you just don't have time for that right now? It's something that we're guilty of a lot. We wouldn't take the risk with our cars, but we are absolutely willing to take that risk with ourselves. Your body is talking to you. When it is giving you symptoms and niggles and things are not comfortable or you're in pain, we need to take notice of that. And so one of the things, of course, is noticing the changes, but not just noticing the changes, but being able to talk about them and advocate for yourself when you go to the doctor, as well as remember what it is that you wanted to ask in the first place. So I've borrowed from the medical profession track, triage, treat, repeat. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to track our symptoms. So you can download a symptom tracker. You can then say for a period of 3 or 4 weeks or so, you can make it longer if you want to, track what's actually going on. Is it mental health stuff? Is it physical symptoms? How is your sleep? It's possible that you'll find 8, 9, 10, 15 things going on for you. But what's the likelihood that your doctor's going to have the time in your 10-minute, even if you're lucky enough to get a 40-minute appointment? What are the chances you're going to get through all of those? Pretty slim. So we triage. Just like at the hospital, if you've ever waited in the emergency room for a few hours because you've sprained your leg or you've broken something, if someone comes in bleeding, they're going to get in ahead of you every single time. Bleeding is priority. So we need to identify for you so we can maximize your experience at the doctor and get some more clarity about what to do next and some control back into your life. We need to go to the doctor with our top 3 symptoms. So you track, you identify what are the top 3 symptoms that are impacting my life negatively the most, and we deal with those first. We're going to write those down onto our GP appointment preparation sheet because we're not leaving this stuff to chance. I don't know about you, but I've got baby brain again now, and sometimes I forget things. So we're going to write them down. We're going to be able to discuss with our doctor, these are the things that I'm struggling with. How can you help me, please? Because normally in the past, if we've had symptoms, we've gone to our doctor, we've explained what's been happening, they explore what it could be, and they offer us a treatment plan. But we have the feeling that we've been heard, understood, cared for, and that someone knows what to do next. Unfortunately, at the moment in perimenopause, we don't often get that joy. We walk away sometimes just as confused and certainly no better off than we were when we walked in. That's not okay anymore. We're not going to let that happen. 3 things. Come up with a treatment plan with your doctor. They will advise you not only on the medical options that you have, but they're also going to talk to you about diet and lifestyle stuff. You can also go in and say, hey, this is what I've already tried. This hasn't been working for me. Okay? So we track, triage, we treat, we come up with a treatment plan, and then we repeat. So we actually go through the symptom management process all over again for another couple of weeks. So before we leave our doctor's appointment that day, we make our next appointment for a month later, maybe 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. But we've already got our appointment, and we're going to track so that we can see how that treatment plan has either been helping us or whether it's not helping us. Again, I think I said earlier, if you go on HRT, probably 80 or 90% of your symptoms will be knocked out of the park and you'll be pretty much back to normal. But it may not be the case, and you may not want to go down the HRT route. Okay, so you're going to have to find some alternatives. But you need to know exactly what's going on for you. So let's treat and repeat. You can do that as many times as you like, because when you go back for that second time, not only can you say about how your treatment has responded or how your symptoms have responded, what are the next 3 symptoms that you might want to talk about? Maybe they haven't been addressed at all. And now's your chance to go, okay, this is where I'm at with those, but here's now what I need to address with you. Can you see that by doing that, it gives you some control back over what's happening to you? We don't like being out of control. We are very organised people. We have to be. A lot of people are relying on us every day at home and at work. So if we can take control back of our symptom journey, that gives us clarity about what we have to do next. And knowing that gives us confidence again that we are in control, that we know what we've got to do and we'll get it done. And I think that control and that clarity and the confidence is going to keep more of us at work for longer. That's my wish anyway. So that is the Notice Changes, Track, Triage, Treat, Repeat protocol. Again, I'll link the sheets for that, the symptom management as well as the GP appointment sheet in the bottom of the video. But I've got one more thing for you. After you come out of your appointment with that doctor, I want you to have a moment, maybe sit down with a coffee, and think about your appointment. How was it? How were you treated? How do you feel now that you've left? Do you feel confident that you know what's going on, what you need to do? Do you need to book in some tests? Do you need to make time for a blood test? Have you got a scan that you need to book in for? Prioritize those now, book them in, and consider, this doctor has got my best interest at heart, or no, that was awful, I need to find another doctor. Give yourself that time to reflect on it, because it will be part of you feeling in control of the next stage of your journey. Finally, in our framework, we come up with G. Get connected. It's easy for us to think that we are connected all the time because we have our phones on us. We are engaging with social media. If you're at work, you're talking to colleagues. At home, hopefully you've got some family around. It's not always the case though. So I think it's really important to spend some time thinking about how are we getting connected so we're getting the support that we need at this stage in our lives. So I feel like we need to consider work. Is there an advocate, a leader, or a group where people can come and have conversations and get some support if they need it? That's the first one, work. At home, you know, one of the hardest things is for your kids to also understand what on earth is going on with you. And more than likely, they've got a lot of things going on for themselves. Have you got someone at home? A sister, a mum, a girlfriend? Community. Right now, we're so lucky because with social media, we can jump onto platforms where we can have a share with other people who are going through the same sort of thing. We can share our experiences. We can get some feedback. We can ask questions. So community is a great place to get connected. You don't even have to know those people, but it's just nice to feel like you're being heard and you've got a place to go, to vent and to share. And then finally, with your health professionals. Now, that might be your GP, but it could be a lot more people now. We could have physiotherapist, pelvic floor physiotherapist, podiatrist, exercise physiologist, gynecologist. There could be a whole slew of people now that you need to be engaging with in order to get the help and the support that you need and the information that you need that relates specifically to your needs. Work, home, community, health, and finally with yourself. That's usually something we don't think about. I found this was actually quite useful. I started doing some journaling because at the end of the day, I was doing so much, juggling so many things and making sure I'd done all the things that I had said I was going to do, that I often wasn't thinking and having a bit of a debrief, just to check in with how I was feeling, how I was going. It's not something that comes easily to us. But I made sure to start doing that. And I'd heard someone say, oh, you should share, oh, that was a glimmer. Share a glimmer for the day. And I thought, oh, that's cute, like that. It's a glimmer, something nice. And I thought, okay, glimmers. And then I put myself on this high protein. I was trying to really concentrate on my diet, high protein diet. And this one particular day, it was probably 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I was banging away at work. And it dawned on me that I had just smashed down pretty much a family block of chocolate all by myself. I thought, oh, that's a glitch. That wasn't meant to happen. And I thought, oh, but if I was going to fess up, which I did, if I was going to fess up to someone about my glitch, I also have to tell them about my glimmer. But I also need to tell them about my gains. What have I learned about myself right now? I learned that when the pressure's on, yeah, maybe I go to chocolate for a bit of a quick dopamine hit. That's my gain. That's what I learned. And then, of course, at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I woke up and I thought, oh, I've got glimmers, glitches, gains, but I didn't include my gratitude. And there are things that I'm grateful for every day. And sometimes, if you're having a tough day, it can be really hard to think about, oh, what am I grateful for? I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my workplace. That's a great place to turn up to every day. I love working with my colleagues. I'm grateful for the roof over my head. I'm grateful for the fact that I didn't break down in traffic today. So these little bits of gratitude I've learned can be really helpful in just helping you come back and recognize that, yeah, today may not have been the greatest day, but there is some good in every day. So I've come up with a little page, and it's just a glimmers, glitches, gains, and gratitude. Print it out. Write down some things that you're grateful for. And if you don't do it every day, that's okay. Do it every few days. Do it once a week, do it once a month. But do it at some stage so that you are taking the time, instead of just rushing and reacting all the time, you are actually proactively engaging with what you need for you, because you are usually the last person that you're thinking about at the end of the day. Glimmers, glitching, gains, and gratitude. Have a think about how you might be able to include that in your day-to-day so that you're rounding out your strong framework and you are taking some action and some positive steps for what you need. Now, with the strong framework that I've shared with you today, we're all going to be at different places. I put it in that order because that's convenient for me, and it helps me remember all those different parts. But you might be quite on top of your scheduled testing and your scans, and you might be sleeping really well. Maybe you know everything you need to know about your testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, and you're happy with that. Maybe for you, you're thinking, you know what, yeah, I need to focus on my resistance exercise and my rest. Maybe for you, it's about relationships, those ones at work or at home. Where do I want to go next? Am I happy here with what I'm doing? What do I need? Maybe that's the check-in that you need to do. Or maybe you can say, like me, when I'm traveling, my nutrition is terrible and I need to do something about that. Maybe that's where you focus your energy and your time. Maybe you've just been bumbling along and you haven't been noticing your changes. You haven't been paying attention, but you're thinking, you know what, I think actually now Manny's right. I need to start noting what's going on in my body and I need to start doing something about it because I deserve to. I deserve that. Or maybe you're at the G stage. You've got all the other things going along nicely, but you know what? Yeah, you probably could be a bit better connected. Maybe I do need to spend some time journaling, sharing what I'm happy about. So for yourself or for your girlfriends, I hope that you'll share the ST.R.O.N.G framework and ask them to consider what parts of these they might be underperforming in, so that overall your experience during your perimenopause to menopause journey is the best one that you can possibly have. You haven't learned everything that there is to know about perimenopause today, but I'm hoping that you've got a really good overview now about the main pillars, the key fundamentals that you will find more doctors and scientists talking about and sharing about, and that I've given you an overview of all of them. So you can decide where now you want to spend your extra reading time, because we've all got limited time in every day. And there's a lot of information coming in at us every single day through various channels. How do you decide where you're going to spend your precious time? I hope that's helped you. You can't always bring your A game. Sometimes your B or C game just has to do you to get through the day or your workout, and that's okay. Remember that nothing in our life is linear, nor does it just keep getting better as a series of steps. Sometimes life's progress is more like a ball of wool you cat dragged in. It goes up and down and in and around, and it feels like a bit of a mess. It's chaos. But it doesn't stay that way. It gets better. We regain some clarity and control, and we put it back into order again. Then the next thing happens to throw us off our carefully planned regime. As long as you remember to stay in the game, that's your mission. No one climbs Mount Everest alone. You need a base crew, you need base camp, you need oxygen. When you're drowning in symptoms, connection is your life raft. If you are a leader of staff going through perimenopause and they come to you because they're struggling, here are some things I suggest you do. 1, share this video with them. And without getting too much detail, ask if they've had the opportunity to get a hold of a symptom management tracker. Have they identified the symptoms that they're actually struggling with the most? If they haven't, give them a symptom tracker. Put one on your staff intranet. Use the one link below if you'd like to get them started, or refer them to a menopause organisation in your local area. Ask them if they've found a supportive doctor, or if they need help to find one. Do they have a supportive person at home? Not everyone does. Even if they have a partner might be not as supportive as they could be. You might be the only person they feel safe sharing their struggle with. Ask them how they're sleeping. If they are struggling, give them a sleep cheat sheet to help them. There's one link below. Put it on your staff intranet. Arrange for a women's circle or support group at work and discuss what kind of flexible accommodations can be trialled. For example, you might be able to have flexible start and finish times for work, maybe a few work from home days. Feeling seen, heard and cared for at work builds appreciation and loyalty. Most people want to do the right thing at their workplace, but they just may need some more help or accommodations for a while. And you can help with that. Before we finish, I'd like to ask 2 things of you. Firstly, if you found this video helpful, please consider liking, subscribing and sharing it with another woman who might benefit from it. The more we talk about our perimenopause, the more women we help become forewarned, forearmed, and ultimately formidable. Secondly, if you're sitting there thinking, Manny, that was great, very helpful, but where do I actually start? I've created a 30-day S.T.R.O.N.G challenge to help you put this information into practice. Because information alone doesn't create changes, action does. Over the next 30 days, I'll guide you through one simple step at a time, and together we'll focus on building stronger foundations. Through better sleep, nutrition, movement, reflection, self-advocacy, and planning for what's next. You'll receive practical tools, worksheets, reflection exercises, and support to help you move from feeling overwhelmed to feeling informed, organised, and empowered. You'll also join a community of women who are navigating many of the same challenges, celebrating wins, sharing insights, and reminding each other that we're not meant to do this alone. You don't need to overhaul your whole life. You just need to take the next step. And if that sounds like something you need right now, I'd love to have you join us. You'll find the link below, and remember, strong foundations don't just help us survive this stage of life, they help us build what comes next. I'll see you inside the challenge.